Accept the minutes of November 20th as presented.
I have a question about the minutes.
Fire away.
Under the discussion of the cemetery, towards the end of it, Laura had put something about me. I didn't have that either.
Yep. Research the select board obligation and most functional way to approach. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. What if?
We know that.
Was that what you guys said?
If you missed it.
Or what is it? I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. Is that what you said? Or was that the intention of what you said? Or
I think basically what it was to just make sure that your concept that we don't have any, I mean, I know we don't have any legal jurisdiction, but our role in guiding or working with the cemetery, if there's any sort of structure for that, working with the cemetery commissioners. I just think, we need to know, in a situation like this, is there a role that the select board has
okay, I can handle that.
in this process? Or, I mean, I think that if we had contentious cemetery commissioners and we had this situation, I think we would simply put this on as an article and say we got to get rid of the cemetery commissioners.
We would have the fiduciary control.
Something along those lines, right? Our responsibility.
Our sole responsibility.
I guess my thing, it feels like there's a kind of a general consensus that we're all kind of working together right now
to achieve the same thing.
So, is there anything really for me to research at this point? I guess.
Well, I guess the legalities. I don't know. Just ask like VLCT or somebody what.
Wasn't sure what I was supposed to do.
I don't want us to step on their toes.
Okay.
But we need to make sure that. I mean, I think that. Basically, we need to figure out how to fund the cemetery commission.
Okay, so as far as the minutes go, because that was the intent of what.
I think so.
Okay.
Sufficient.
Okay.
Once again, it's a call for more services. More services cost us more.
Cost more money,
Okay.
but it's the reality of
happy path
of what we have. I mean,
to
try and do everything that needs to be done on the budget that the cemetery commission is on is maybe just not possible. Or is it because the cemetery commission is choosing to spend funds the way they choose as opposed to differently? I don't know. I think that $50,000 question is a little complicated because we don't have the designation of
I just wanted to make sure that after the whole conversation happened for the minutes, that we were still, that was something that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I need to know for the minutes part of it. I got it. I think I'm pretty.
Can I say something? I thought the minutes were for you to find out what the responsibility of the select board was in connection with the cemetery commission.
Basically.
I thought that's really what it was. And when I brought out the copies of the statutes, it was to also show what our doing due diligence to our office is. Because all of that is laid out in the statute. It is actually pretty clear. I think that in this instance we had a taxpayer who wanted much more than the statute allowed for. Well,
but I do think he's right that that statute is archaic in choosing a number of $500, because $500 is ludicrous in this situation. Well, so, I don't know when the statute was written, I don't know what the implications are, but I think that regardless of that number coming from the statute, which was clearly stated in there, as you guys pointed out, we can't get the lawns mowed once for that. So, I mean, that number's irrelevant in my opinion. So I think what we need to know is sort of what our responsibility is, what the town's responsibility is, and then how the select board would deal with that as far as the cemetery commission is concerned, if the cemetery commission is not fulfilling duties to the satisfaction of the taxpayers, which I think in general they are. There's a complaint from one which opens it up to investigation,
Okay.
So.
All right. That's all.
Yeah.
But I also think that we're not going to, on the budget that you're on, the trend that the cemeteries are on is going to continue. I mean, we're going to lose a little bit of our overall maintenance every year, as opposed to ideally, I think we'd be gaining a little bit on them every year. But I don't think that's realistic with the budget we have.
Well, I think what Jeff Gaddis also wanted was an enormous amount of,
Right.
I mean, and after speaking with him in the lobby, as the commissioners did, I think that we came to a better understanding.
Yeah.
I mean, that didn't happen in front of you guys, but
Right.
clearly he didn't leave the building without being heard and being heard.
Right.
So,
Right. No, I just think we should be trending towards improving, as opposed to, not that we're not doing everything we can, but if we're not putting enough money into it and therefore things are deteriorating a little bit each year, it's a losing battle. So we need to reverse that trend.
And we can talk about that during budget time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and in the meantime, I will contact the league just for a little bit of advice on the process.
What the boundaries are.
Okay,
what
I got
the
it.
boundaries are of it.
When I saw that, I said to Laura, "Oh, well, what am I supposed to do?"
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
yeah, it sounds a little unclear, but it sounds like it'll become more clear. I mean, I think everybody wants the same thing.
Yeah.
I do too.
Clear. That's the point. Is that I think everything's so unclear now.
Exactly.
We get, yeah.
Because the statute is clear that the select board is responsible for the that statute that Jeff presented makes it clear that the select board is responsible for making sure that the cemeteries are well taken care of. By virtue of the way our system works, that would sort of put that on you. But if that's not the way it's supposed to work, that's what we need to know.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Or what? I mean, I guess basically if we have a functional cemetery commission that's achieving what people want it to achieve, then the select board says, hey, that's on the cemetery commission. If we don't, then
Suggest
we have
it's
to look at that.
along the lines like the library. It's in effect gives us the power, the fiduciary power to create a board and a functioning board that manages a specialty.
But it isn't like the library.
Well,
No, it is
because
not.
you guys are elected.
It's like the library in the sense of our responsibility in regards to it. We fund the library commission. I mean, the cemetery commission. We fund the library. You have your own board. You make your fiscal decisions. You report to us on it, and we create a budget for it every year. We give you in effect.
The
To
difference-
fund it. I mean, you raise and you operate it semi-independently in the sense that you raise money by selling plots and et cetera, and expend your
But the
money.
the big difference is that since they're elected,
Yeah. It
we
is.
can't tell them what to do.
As the library
library
board
trustees
is,
are too.
or
No,
also.
that's not true. They're appointed.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, they're appointed. You're right.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
are
it's
right.
a
They are.
different-
They were elected.
By voice at town meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a slate that is nominated and elected by voice at town meeting.
But the library
Yeah,
doesn't run
that's-
independently.
Yeah, that is technically
So,
elected. I
because it's
would
a
think.
weird thing. They're all like on the same cycle of when their term expires, and it gets all done
Yeah,
at
I mean,
town
Lauren,
meeting.
I thought it was nomination for appointment and that we approved
Yeah,
that, but I
I
could
don't
be
know,
wrong.
well, this
Yeah.
is way off the,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's way off.
it's way off the minutes question that I
Right.
have,
Yes.
but.
So,
anyway, it's been moved to accept the minutes.
and the point being that Cynthia is going to research this and hopefully bring some light as to what our responsibility is versus your responsibility and what the implications of that are.
Okay, well.
I mean, it may come down to them saying the select board has none.
Exactly.
And cannot
Unless
unless the
we
voters.
choose to bring it to the voters to see
Right,
whether they want to do
my
it
guess is
differently.
that's maybe the answer, is that they have none.
I would think
The
so, too.
cemetery commissioners are a separately elected board
Right.
that have sole responsibility for that.
Right.
And that if it comes before the select board that there's a problem, then the only thing at that point that you have the ability to
Legal
do
ability to do is to bring it
before the voters.
I think that's the
I think
case.
that's it, but I don't know.
but I
for
think
sure.
we
Okay,
should
so
find out.
I'm more clear as to what I need to find.
Good.
Sorry.
Did you get that all in the minutes so that she can be really clear when she
Yeah.
reads them?
I read it today. I said, Laura, am I supposed to do something? Are you sure they said this? I'm not sure they did.
Okay,
It's been moved.
so it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. And although we had discussion, we did not have any amendment to the minutes of November 20th, so all in favor, say aye.
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 So
Okay.
the budget, both A and B is this packet of paper, which really we don't need to go over at any length. It's just for you guys to start looking at.
For
the
next
meeting.
week,
Yep.
basically.
The meeting next week, there's an overview of kind of how I laid out who, to give people times to come in and sit and talk and work on their budget.
Yeah,
The only thing I wanted to point out is that I did write next to the library, they gave me their budget today. I had level funded it, but I wrote what they gave me today. It was
You wrote it where?
I wrote it next to the library line on page, I don't know what page 9.
And what's that difference a result of, do you know?
I don't know exactly.
You don't know? Okay. So what,
So-
because often Stephen sort of says,
Oh, you mean what the
such and
difference in
such
the...
cost
Well, part of it is
came
with,
up
the other
because
thing I
of-
wanted to point out is all of the salary line items, right now, we started at 2% increase.
2% COLA.
Yeah, so that's part of what his is.
Okay.
I mean, I have a whole budget from him that
Yeah,
shows the differences. and we
that's
can go
fine.
through
Yeah,
that.
no, he often has sort of one big ticket item that he says, this year we're wanting you to
No,
look
it was
at
kind of a-
increasing hours or changing the.
Nope, nothing
this or
like that.
Okay.
Water and sewer are there. These are all really just tentative draft. It's just to get us to start working. And I did put another page in there about the surplus, because we had talked about that. It's not attached, but it's in
Yeah.
there. And I just wanted to point out on that we had talked about $163,000 surplus,
Uh-huh.
but when I looked over that surplus a little bit more, 15,000 of it was a carryover from FY13 that we reserved for gravel. And then I did an accounting of the gravel pit. We borrowed 75,000, but we've only spent 57, and I think we're done. So we may so 17,000 of the surplus is the excess of the borrowing.
But you don't have that on here.
No, that's not it. That's chemical feed.
So this is just in here.
Oh, this
Right.
is just chemical feed. Sorry,
That's
I
right.
was looking at, yeah, okay.
So
Where is
we
that?
may end up, when we talk about surplus, we may just end up, if that ends up being the final number on the gravel pit, I would assume we would just put that back into the borrowing, pay down the borrowing a little bit. I mean, we didn't need to borrow 75. I did it because it went.
So we did borrow that much, or we got approval for borrowing?
I
that
borrowed
much?
it.
But we did.
Yeah, because we were
Actually,
starting to spend quite a bit of money, and I wasn't.
Yeah, just had it on his, and that's Chittenden,
Yeah, people. Yeah.
so we just better.
So
pay that off.
we're waiting for a final accounting from Mike Renault on
Yeah.
his share, because he's supposed to pay a third.
Yeah.
And
But I
once
think
that's in,
right. Sounds good.
yeah. So really, we're looking at 130.
And he knows that he has to do that in a timely fashion pretty soon.
Well, he's been asked a couple times.
And for what it's worth, department, I wanted that VCLT training or whatever, they say that a lot of towns do have a 5% reserve fund.
Yeah,
It would be about 80 grand, about 80 grand or something like that.
yeah.
So,
I wonder what they do if they don't meet that 5% though. Like if they have a year that they don't, do they have to then, if they have a policy, do they have to then raise it in the next year to keep that 5% reserve?
I think that was a question that
Probably.
was brought up.
Yeah.
You probably have
yeah.
to, right.
I mean, if you had it as a policy that you would always have that, I mean, you know, that probably wouldn't, if we started on that now and you sort of set it aside and let it build, the tricky part would be how much do you spend down when in order to
Right.
maintain that 80.
Right.
I
mean, it's always easy to say, yeah, we want a 5% reserve when we have enough for the 5%, but what about those years that you don't? Then you gotta raise taxes to
Right,
cover a surplus
exactly.
fund balance? I don't know how
Well,
I
that's,
feel about
that's the crux of the argument.
But
You know,
is it a-
you sock money away,
Yeah,
but people say, well, if you don't need it, why are you taking it out of
Yeah,
our
I
pockets
don't
in
know.
taxes every year? You know,
And is it a surplus
wise-
fund balance
wisely- wise
or do you
fiduciary
call it a
right,
capital
right.
fund balance, in
Right.
which case, yes, you fund it, you know? I mean, if you say we need to have this amount as a capital fund, which is not unreasonable, but,
No.
you know, I mean, we also have good borrowing ability, so, but in a year,
and with
the
low interest rates,
exactly, the rates
that's
are
been
so
the case for the
low.
last
Yeah.
10 years.
Exactly.
I think it probably is a wiser system because, you know, not every, you know, board or group is going to be as sensible about spending money.
Right.
You know, you start looking at this, you know, call it a slush fund for lack of
Right.
a better word.
Right.
Or, you know, and somebody angry at town meeting is going to say, oh, they're giving all this great money.
I think I might have
You
been
start
one of those
spending
people at
it.
town meeting one year.
You start spending it in
Yeah.
ways that are maybe not as
Prudent, yeah.
prudent as-
Now, also, I mean, if it,
we
you
can
know,
buy that new truck.
if it was gonna be, you know, 13% to borrow money, then
Then that's a different.
we wouldn't wanna be borrowing money, we'd rather raise it, right?
So we have to jump through our.
Well, when we talked about the 163, and then I started looking at it and thinking, well, wait a minute, last year we talked about reserving some of it, and then when I did the accounting for the gravel pit, I thought, whoa, wait a minute, there's some of that is borrowed money that we really could just pay back if we,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that still leaves us with a pretty
Yeah,
healthy
significant
balance
balance.
anyway.
Right,
So
right. Well, that's just wise government.
that's probably why Tom's here, because he's been seeing that there's a significant surplus, and he's just waiting to jump on it.
This next thing, and maybe the cemetery commissioner discussion for the town meeting articles, maybe that needs to be tabled after I talk to the league, I don't know, but I was just wanting to get back to these two people that were at the last meeting
Yeah.
and let them know whether they need to petition or whether you think there will be a town meeting article added. Especially for sevens, because that's gonna take them some time.
Yeah,
And some resources.
yeah.
So, I don't know, yeah,
I
that's
don't-
where I'm at with those two, I just wanna get back.
I don't have a problem with putting it on there as an article. I think that it warrants a discussion whether it will end up that we as a select board decide to promote it at town meeting or not. I think we'll have to talk further about, but I think putting it on as an article is fine.
For both of them, I mean, or for?
For sevens specifically.
Yeah.
For the cemetery commissioners, I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one.
Do you wanna wait until I talk to the league about what
Probably.
our...
I think.
I mean, I do know that, I did talk to Jim Barlow about this specific question, Jim Barlow's the attorney
Right,
for the
yeah.
league, and he leaned towards petitioning, not
For cemetery commission.
for cemetery commissioners, because not only just to gather signatures and give you guys the ability to put it on there, it was so that the person that was gathering signatures knew what
What
kind
was
of,
involved.
yeah, what was involved and if there was support
Yeah.
for that, because that's a really personal town discussion. That,
Yeah, no, and it would certainly open up discussion about it if that were, you know, I mean, X% of the people that sign a petition are gonna sign it without,
Without,
you know,
yeah.
really thinking about it, but the other percent are gonna say, oh, why are we thinking about this and what's the deal?
Yeah.
And, you know, if Jeff is, you know, I guess the other question might be, is Jeff still
pushing to have this
Yeah, I don't know. I
on
haven't
as
talked
an
to him since
article,
the meeting.
so
He
it
may
might be
not,
worth talking
since
to
he-
Jeff about that.
But it seems to me that it warrants some pretty big discussion anyway, considering, I mean, if these trees are dangerous and it's going to cost, $20,000 to take them down, I mean, there's an issue, a larger issue, and I don't know if it's just that one or the other ones too, but it seems like there's some huge financial issues coming down the pike. Why not get on top of it? Now, I'm not
Yeah.
saying there needs to be a discussion. I'm not necessarily saying there has to be an article on it.
Right, no, and I think that, the other thing, my feeling would be, in the interest of not extending town meeting beyond its sometimes already long length, is that would be more appropriate as a public meeting than it would as a town meeting discussion, just because you could open a 2-hour discussion at town meeting, and we just don't want to do that, I don't think. I mean, if it comes up as an article, that's one thing.
Right.
But if we're saying to people, hey, we got an issue with the cemeteries, what do you guys think? And, we could try and do that in time to put it on as an article, but I don't know that that's realistic. I mean, we could try and have, an early January meeting about that, so that we'd know by the end of January whether we wanted to put it on. But,
You mean a public meeting just to
A
discuss
public-
the cemeteries in general?
exactly, sort of an informational meeting.
Well, I mean, that brings up a point of a question I wanted to ask you guys about. You used to have all board meetings. There
Right,
used to be a meeting that was held maybe
sometimes,
around.
yes.
Yeah, it
All
wasn't
board
every
meetings.
year an all board meeting where each
We invite all
board
the-
Yeah.
commission-
Oh, I see.
And
Would that be a place that it could, or is that too
well,
much?
it's a
discussion
short,
for one?
it's a short, there's enough discussion to probably go on between just a couple of boards.
Yeah, okay.
Like it has this particular situation.
Yeah, so maybe
You know,
it would
that
be.
merits, the full attention and focus when you've got
Yeah.
10 or 11, in-town boards and then several out-of-town
Okay,
contributors, then, it's really just a meet and greet.
okay. Kind of, this is what we do.
Right, this
kind
is
of
what
thing.
we do.
Definitely.
There's a couple things that are gonna happen this winter and spring from the cemetery commissioners, and they're, for lack of a better term, I guess they're like death talk cafes, where we're gonna bring information to people about how many plots are available in each cemetery, as a handout, and also just a sample of what people do for their death wish, kind of like a birth plan, but a death plan.
Mhm.
And that's something that we were going to put together for the town, just to do them kind of every 6 weeks throughout the summer and the spring, to see who comes, and also to see how the discussion goes. Because if it is something that is well attended, we can do more with it, because it would be nice to embrace whatever passion comes from that and use it.
Mhm.
I mean, we've been fortunate in that we've had a full board for many years, and I'd like it to always stay that way. And one of the reasons it does actually is because everybody seems to be happy about how the cemeteries are going. But it's always a good idea to know more. So that was something that we were going to do in January, February, March, in that way somewhere, 2 or 3 of them. Just for people in town, just so that they know. Because we do have 15 cemeteries in town. We don't mow all of them, but we certainly...
Try and do something with all of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like even the Catherine Cemetery, the cemetery commissioners corral people to go there once a year, and we clean it up and keeps the woods from taking it over, even knowing that kind of stuff. But we were going to do it more in a cafe discussion kind of way.
Well, I guess the other thing that I would probably ask you to do, and whether you can do this, you may have already been having this discussion, but I would encourage you guys to present a budget to us that you think is realistic for achieving some of the goals that you would like to achieve. I mean, we in theory sort of have to fund mowing to the degree at least that we do, if not more. Exactly. But, if you guys request X amount more for tree work every year and have that as something that you just do every year, you know, if that goes through on the town budget, then you have that money to work with.
Right.
So I don't know whether you guys have already thought about that
Can't
and worked
take
through
down all
it.
20 trees, but maybe, you know, there's a plan to take down.
$2,500 a year.
One a year,
That's what you do.
one a year.
Well, one of the things that we decided to do as cemetery commissioners was not make that a line budget item, but to use interest and to use our funds for the tree work as we could. Now, by saying that, I also include that we would entertain the idea of maybe being more aggressive about it and doing more like that. But we took over that particular cemetery in the late 70s. So when Jeff Gaddis said that 30 years ago, 35 years ago, he complained about it, it's possible that it wasn't to the town. I don't know if it was or wasn't. It's the first time I heard from him. But some of the things that he was concerned about was like straightening out the stones and stuff like that. And when we spoke to the experts, it was like, no, you don't want to do that because you could snap them. Like you can do more harm than good.
Right.
So it isn't just making it all tidy.
Right.
There's more involved than that.
So the first thing that's necessary is a accurate, objective assessment of what it would take to restore the cemetery to it. Then you've got that
Well,
to
which-
to work from,
doesn't need to be
and work it
restored.
backwards from that point.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be restored. It's really the 3 trees that are in the back that are...
Right, yeah, but
Restoration
we're not,
is afterwards.
I'm not talking specifically about Maple Grove. I'm talking about the cemeteries.
Oh,
And,
and-
you know, the reality is that, like I was trying to say before, if we don't want it to be a constant process of deterioration, which it's gonna be, but if we can trend it towards improvement versus deterioration, which I'm not saying that isn't happening, that's what our goal needs to be.
Well, and that
and-
is what we've done.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
what you're shooting for, right?
Right, well,
So-
that's what we've been doing. I mean,
Sure. And I guess then the question is, and your job for coming to us with a budget is to sort of realistically assess it. Maybe you've already done this, and maybe
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying is, you know, come and even if it's a pie in the sky budget, hey, we can present it at town meeting, and if it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. You know, if people, you know, I don't know how we would approach that exactly.
Well, I
but-
think what
well,
you're
it's-
trying, I think what you're trying to say is that if you go to each cemetery and you say, okay, let's take this one up here, you know that road needs to be fixed. What does it cost to fix it?
Right.
If that's $15,000, then that's where you need a starting point of all the if you had all the money in the world, what would you do kind of thing, and then work on that list. But they can't even begin to present any type of budget at town meeting or a number without those numbers being backed by something. Of that, this is our grand wish list
It
of
also is a
cemeteries.
breakout that allows for research of grants and
Yeah, that's
out
true.
donations. Somebody
Right.
says, I really want to give, you know.
okay, well, just so that you know, I did research grants when we acquired
Oh, sure,
Mount
I
Pleasant.
understand that.
Well, also because George Aiken is in there.
Yeah.
So I sought out, and there was absolutely positively no money to do that with. But our budget that we asked the town for is just the mowing.
Right.
We do not ask for the other stuff, and it's not because we're not aware of the other stuff, but we do it in a kind of by degrees fashion. We do it as it's needed. We don't wait until it's an emergency. We certainly
Well, this
don't.
is where the whole role of the select board versus the cemetery commission comes in for me. Because if our responsibility to townspeople is to designate enough funding so that we can be improving cemeteries more than we are, then we should be doing that. So I think we should not have this discussion anymore right now. My recommendation is that you guys think hard about a budget that's realistic for you to do what you need to do, and then maybe some more, and bring it to us as a budgetary, because we're looking at budgets. That's what we're doing in the next couple of weeks, and then we see whether we can put it on our budget or not. But I think that just to keep going the way it is, at least Jeff is not going to be happy about that. I don't know whether other people are not going to be happy about it or not. But if you're saying to me that you're thinking we're doing just fine and we don't have to do anything else, even after the discussion that we had last week, I'm thinking to myself, maybe we're not approaching this the right way. So I think you need to look at that budget and bring it back to us. So that's all I want to do about this now. But But if you can work on that, that would be great.
What do we want to do? What do we want to tell Jeff about that?
I think you need to ask Jeff whether
He's still-
yeah,
okay,
and talk about it with the LCT, and then we go from there.
Then I'll bring it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Chemical feed building report.
That. There's a printout, just the total cost.
It's
of the
just that.
chemical
Okay.
feed. Yep.
Yeah.
It ended up being $69,000 total. 15 of that was engineering costs. So Simons did a really great job in keeping us
Yeah.
on target. They think it's great. I think Joe wants to put a cot in there maybe and sleep in there once in a while. He thinks it's
Breathe
great in
deeply.
there. So that's just the update. I think that at this point right now, we do have authorization to borrow up to $100,000, but I don't think that 60,000 of it, of the whole entire project, which was chemical feed and headworks at the time that vote was done, 60,000 of the project was going to be surplus funds or capital reserve or whatever it was that we
Put
have in
into
the
it.
sewer. So I think cash flow wise right now, we don't need to worry about borrowing any money.
Good.
Um,
And are we going to end up with?
I mean, our sewer.
Sorry, you said we did borrow 100, or
No, we didn't. We have authorization
for up to 100.
for up to 100. But that was the entire headworks and
Right.
chemical feed, and I think maybe the projection at that time was like 150,000 for all of it.
Yeah.
Are we
And-
still considering the headworks project?
I don't think so at this time.
this
I think
time
they did
it's
some.
still-
They did some stuff
We
to
did
it.
oxygenators and some
Yeah, there was some
different
other
levels
stuff that has
sufficient
helped.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To address all of those.
So I think we're good right now. So I sent them a big old thank you, Simon's Operations, for all the work that Chris Hayes did. I was a real pain in the you know what with him, with money and budgeting and
It looks like it worked out
Yeah.
the way we would like it to.
a little less than what we were told in the beginning.
We're
Good.
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
I'm just going to drop something off for Cynthia, which has nothing to do with you.
Oh,
that's fine.
thank you.
She's still-
Just walk right at that. Don't walk in front of the camera.
Thanks. I thought I was going to have information on our liability insurance and workers' comp for you tonight, but they didn't get it to me, so that's not. We can skip that. Probably tomorrow they'll have it to me.
All right.
We can talk about it during
Yeah.
budget time. Yeah.
Tom, do you have something specific?
He is here to talk about an agreement that we need to, our rescue agreement. But we need to do it in executive session,
Okay.
under contract agreement. Yeah.
Okay, how much longer do we?
Oh,
we
not
don't-
much.
we
I mean,
don't
I
wanna
was
do
just
that
gonna,
now.
I
Yeah.
was just gonna tell you that, I don't know if you guys noticed, but we replaced the lights outside on this side of the building. They ended up being, Chamberlain came and did it. It was $1,000, we're getting $350 back through a rebate.
From Efficiency Vermont.
Yeah.
And they'll cost less to run too.
Yep, so those are done. The pool is next. The pool's quite a bit more expensive, but when I talked to the insurance company, because they have to do more wiring.
And is she gonna let us use that pole?
No, we're gonna put a light. We're gonna put a light inside the pool off of the pool house. That's gonna be a motion light if somebody jumps the fence or tries to.
And on the other side,
I'm
are we
still
gonna think
working
about
on
it or
that.
not? Okay, so I mean, we should
Yeah.
just, if we're gonna get somebody there to do it,
Yeah.
there would probably be some savings in having them
Yeah.
do it all at once if we
But-
can, so.
Deb is a busy woman. She's
She
very
is a
hard to
busy
get in
woman.
touch with.
Yes.
The last conversation I had with her was she was going to check to see if we could use that pool. I haven't heard from her since. And just to update you that Tom and Laura worked on making the change to the
I called.
okay.
So now my only question is, Tom, and I just out of interest, when you push 2 and somebody will call you back, what's the process for you? Like, how does that go?
It
Call
automatically
somebody,
forwards to
whoever's.
a series of cell phones.
Okay, good. I assumed that was the case. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I didn't need a permit that day, so I didn't do it. So, but good. And has it worked yet?
Yeah,
And more than you might like it to.
yes. But that's all right.
But it's effective, right?
Right, and it'll, yeah. In the
I mean,
long run,
allow people to get
it-
permits and
yeah.
then not
Yeah.
have to be. Good.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
and thank you, Laura.
And I just have one, I'm gonna try to be quick, just to tell you guys, so in case you get, stops you about what we're doing. We have had a lot of discussion about Sandhill, beaver dams, rain. I'm in the process right now of getting the specialist from the state to come talk with Brian about what things are up there, what's food supply, what's dams, what's all of that. And then I'm having him contact somebody at the district office for the state to go up there and help him assess the situation of,
Help the state guy assess it?
have the state, somebody from Dummerston office, either
Yeah,
John or
yeah.
Mark, to come have them assess it. Because Brian's really worried that this, I don't know if you've been up there recently.
The water's high.
Well, the water's high, and if you're going towards the school up to the right in the stream, there's a lot of sticks,
Right.
and
Just saw that today. I was looking.
he's concerned that if they let loose, they're gonna block the
Yeah.
bridge. So I want an opinion from somebody else that understands roads and water and all of that to help him assess how immediate of an issue it is, and then decide whether we
How to
should do
manage it.
something.
Right.
So that's where we are. I'm trying to get him some help to figure out what the best way is to try to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
Okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, that's all I have about
Town hall fire escape, were you?
that. Laura, did you call that guy?
I left a message yesterday.
So we'll see. See whether anything comes of it.
Yeah,
Maybe he's just plain not interested. Sort of appears that way, but.
maybe. We may have to talk about just putting some money in to have the other, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
lot of money to have him come look at that, but.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have anybody in your head that would be able to,
An
Give us-
engineer?
somebody that would give us an assessment of the condition of this? Who would do that for us?
I'll give Cynthia a few different names.
There's got to be somebody that's, got the degree and got the stamp, that'll say this is unsafe or this is safe.
I mean, I
Is there a
think it,
recommendation to make it safe or tear it down?
exactly. No, and I think that my guess is it's unsafe, but can be made safe relatively easily. I mean, we haven't
Right.
been particularly
Right.
concerned with it because there's
Right, we haven't given it a
virtually
great deal of
zero
minutes.
occupancy out there.
I
But
suspect that the bolts that attach it to the building are
Exactly.
dry routed around it and loose, and that's probably the biggest
should
issue with
be
it.
should be
Right.
reattached, and maybe the footings
Barely hanging on the side of it?
up, and who knows? But
I think what we were all concerned with in the beginning was the whole historic.
Oh, well,
Right, no,
you're
it'd be
right.
nice to
And,
save it.
You know,
It's
we
just-
can get more people involved in this if you want.
I'm just saying what we've said back when this all started.
But we also don't, there's no limitation to access to it. So, you
Yeah.
could have a couple kids climb up there some
Right.
Saturday evening.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and it falls off, and then we got a real problem.
Exactly.
So,
Or it just of its own accord falls
Falls
off in an
off
ice
and
storm and
hits
crushes the
the
car.
car,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Okay.
Comes through the window
Yep.
of the lister's office.
all right. So, is
Steve-
that all we have?
Yeah.
I don't have your review. I want to.
Are you really concentrating on it? He wanted to be a part of it if you would let him.
Well, I was thinking before I do it,
You
I'm
should
sorry,
go around and talk
but-
to some people.
Well, I should talk to some people, but also we should sit down and
Okay,
talk.
that's fine.
And
So,
then- and then-
we could do it
Sometime.
other than another meeting. I just don't know. You have to just get their input on it, that's all.
Well, I can't get their input on it without it
Oh,
being
it being a
executive
meeting.
session.
Shoot, that 3-person board really gets us, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
No, I mean, I think we can
Well-
have that as a discussion in executive session.
Okay,
But I think you and I should sit down. I think, I should probably talk to Tom and to Brian
go ahead.
just for giggles and then go from there,
I'm sure they'll have something to tell you.
Exactly. That's why I need to talk to them.
Brian will tell you I swore at him today.
Oh,
and,
great.
yeah.
Did you get that on film? Yeah.
I'm sure he can take
I'll
it.
admit to it. Okay, so
So are we
there are two things.
for executive session?
Yeah, the first one could be the contract issue,
Okay.
and then we'll do the legal after that.
Sounds good.
You don't. I don't think you need to stay.
Warrants?
Oh.
Oh yeah. Do we want to pay bills?
We might not want to, but up there she is. She just came in. Quick, Buster.
Give your car back?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When we left the meeting, there was this Chris, I don't know his last name, he works over at the convenience store, was standing there with the keys in his hand.
I mean, he had gotten in the
She had
car
accidentally taken it.
and gotten all the way like out of the driveway.
He parked it right. It was parked right out here the whole time.
Here, hey man, I brought you your car. All right.
Well, what happened is, he works for Jim.
Right.
This probably doesn't need to be on the phone.
Well,
He works for Jim. It's good entertainment.
Yeah.
There you go.
Talk about it after.
Yeah.
well, that's all right. You got your car back.
Yeah. I did.
Do I need to bring like coffee next Wednesday for 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Donuts?
Yes. For the first budget meeting, probably coffee, right? After that,
Yeah, exactly.
depending on the news.
Can I borrow your pen?
Sure, yes. Not very good.
Oops, here. Oh, that's not done. That's what the sign there.
I'm going to Montpelier all day tomorrow. Anybody have anything you want me to pass along while I'm up there? No, I should shout from like the chair.
What are you going for?
It's part of that leadership program. Yeah. It's government day. Now I'm staying for the tree lighting ceremony.
Hobnob with the governor.
I don't know if we get to or not. I'll make sure I talk to him about internet. How about that?
I was going to say, I tried something.
Somebody.
I don't remember seeing you on that, but on the Secretary of State's website.
Tell me how it works.
There were 19 pages of them, and I was looking specifically for addresses, and it was, you know, I'm sure I missed some of them, but
I should, I mean, I assume I'm,
registered?
I know I'm registered.
Then you must have been on the
That's whether I'm active or whether.
Or maybe
guess
I saw
could
it
go-
and
there's
just
probably
skipped
a
it because
website
I,
that I can go and look at.
yeah, there were 19 pages of them.
In- fine.
Yeah, well, it's hard to tell. Some of them were probably less than
Good fun.
circle.
And probably some good fun.
Yeah, a lot of inactive.
I'm sure.
But still, it's pretty impressive, the number of.
Small businesses.
Yeah.
I know. No, well, you know, these emails that are going around, you start looking, you start thinking about, you know, I mean, anywhere you are, whether it's your neighborhood or your neighborhood, you know, you think about, oh, well, so-and-so runs this business, such and such does that business. You know, I mean, like, I don't do a ton from home, but, you know, all my invoicing comes via email and so on, you know,
Right.
it's all connected to my business. So. All right, are we done?
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to go
into executive
Boy, you're in a
session
rush, aren't you?
at 6:19, going into executive session.
Yep, same.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We're unlikely to make any decisions that would warrant being on film, so we will notify you of outcomes.